Alright, we're back with the 60. And today we're going to talk about my favorite numbers. And I think at the top of the list is probably 14, maybe 17, and 21 for obvious reasons. And I think that in order to have a number that you like, you need to really think about it. You gotta really want it, you gotta know that number and you gotta think about that number hard, because if you're not thinking hard about that number and you're not knowing that you are thinking about it, then it's gonna be hard to know what your number is that you are favorited for having it, So that's what I'd recommend, is just think about that, have a thing in mind for the number that you're thinking of, and then once you have decided that number is something that you think you like, then think about why that number is think of what you want it to be favorited for yourself, So I think that is probably one of the biggest things you can do, and one of the only things you can do is just really have that number in your brain, think of that number every day, and then once you think of that number, know that it's probably going to be the only thing you're thinking about for, at least the next 5, 10, 15 minutes, because a lot of the time people don't even know what numbers they like until they start thinking about them again. So for me, when I think about numbers, I think like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9. Those are some numbers that come to mind right away. But the more you think about numbers, the less you think about the things that you like in life, like what you like to eat, what you don't like to eat, what color your pajamas are. If you wear pajamas, some people don't like to wear pajamas. And for me, I'm not a big pajama guy. I sort of just, I roll with what I roll with, like I don't need all that extra stuff in the bed while I'm trying to sleep. I gotta keep the bed cool. I gotta keep myself at a good temperature. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that when you're sleeping, all you're doing is thinking about that number that you really want to think about. That's the one that you gotta think about when you're sleeping. So I'd say, keeping all that in mind, I want you guys to know that your number isn't everything. There's more to life than just thinking about numbers and fractions, decimal points, square roots. These are all just hats that numbers can wear, but at the end of the day, everyone's just a number. You're just a number, and the fraction, decimal point, or, square root, none of that defines who you are. You're that number down deep, and you know it. And I just want everyone to know that and to remember that as they go through their day today. So that's all for now. I'll catch you guys in the next one.